Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. They're there gratefully through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice, who maintain that website and this internet show for the sole purpose to be of service, to be of value. And that website, if you go there, whyagain.org, and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of that book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional state into part of the infallible guidance system that each one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. You can click on the link, download it, print it off, and copy it and use it as often as you'd like, absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process and or given powerful testimonials about how the use of that worksheet process in their life has improved the quality of their life. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app. That app contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope that you will do that soon and often, because that frequently leads people to have comments or questions or testimonials to share with us. And if you have any of those, you can give us a call at 563-999-3581. When you call that number and press 1, it puts a little icon of a hand by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. We're also doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year, and that is in conjunction with the Course in Miracles experiment lessons from Pam Grout. And I just finished a session with a patient where we talked a lot about anger and judgment. So I'm going to back up to yesterday's lesson, lesson 347. Coincidentally, maybe not, reads, anger must come from judgment. Judgment is the weapon that I would use against myself. Judgment, think about that. Judgment is the weapon I would use against myself. And when I use it against myself, it keeps the miracle away from me. Amazing. When I would use judgment, it keeps the miracle away from me. Judgment is a weapon I use against myself. Today's lesson simply reads, I have no cause for anger or fear, for the Creator surrounds me, and in every need that I perceive, the Creator's grace suffices me. Creator's grace suffices us in everything that the Creator would have us do, and only that we choose to be our will as well as His. The Course in Miracles experiment lesson from Pam Grout's book. The 347 lesson simply reads, putting on my big girl panties. If you argue for your limitations, sure enough, they are yours. That's from Richard Bach. Pam writes, when I was a kid, I loved playing hide and go seek. One of us would be it, and the rest of us would hide in Mom's closet, underneath the coffee table, or if we were playing outside, behind the neighbor's shed. The whole point was to find someone who wasn't really missing. One exuberant, ollie ollie oxen free was all it took for us to reunite. Lesson 347 points out that I'm still playing a childish game of hide and go seek. Not only do I spend most days covering my eyes and counting to 10, but I waste my time searching for things that aren't really missing. My culture trains me to find problems, limitations, and mistakes. It trains me to then devise plans to fix them. The Course says my time would be better spent recognizing that in reality, nothing is missing. Recognizing that it only appears missing because I spend time looking for it. When I say, I want this, I make the assumption that I don't already have it. When I say, I need to be healthier or more spiritual, I immediately embark on a journey to find the very things that are already my birthright. It's only my decision to seek something that creates the perception that it's concealed. A Course in Miracles reminds me that I already have all of the love, all the abundance, all the joy I need, and at any time I can quit playing make-believe and just say, thank you. I can pretend to be lacking. I can profess the need to be skinnier or wealthier or shacking up with Mr. Right. Or I can acknowledge that I'm the one who made the obstacle course, and I can call ollie ollie oxen free. That's yesterday's lesson. Today's lesson 348 reads, Larry, David, or Mr. Rogers. She quotes Sarah Bon Bresnock as saying, my most profound lessons about life, love, goodness, and courage were revealed through gratitude when heaven and I were barely on speaking terms. Pam writes, back in Paleolithic times, survival depended on keeping a mental file of which berries were poisonous, which rocks made the best tools for fending off mastodons and giant sloths. Lesson 348 says those days are long gone. It says there's absolutely no reason to hang on to pointless information regarding our survival. We are literally surrounded by the dude's love. There's absolutely nothing to fear and no cause for anger. Today, instead of working to ensure my survival, I celebrate all that I have. I see my life as a grand unfolding of grace. Mr. Rogers, here I come. So that's the Course in Miracles workbook lessons for yesterday and today, and the Course in Miracles experiment commentary from Pam Grout. And as usual, we've got about 50 minutes to entertain your comments or questions. Call-in number 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. You can make a comment about the show from yesterday or anything else we've talked about in the past 10-plus years, almost 11. I got a note today that the second half of this show will not be Michael and Jeannie. It will be a replay because Jeannie has COVID and is quite sick and is welcoming any loving thoughts, prayers, blessings, healing energy you want to send her way. And I would encourage you to do that throughout the day. Whenever you think of her, just send loving thoughts and blessings, seeing her as in her wholeness, seeing this as working out as a blessing for everyone involved. And if it is to be so that she's healthy, wealthy, and wise in no time whatsoever. And I would add to that, anybody else who's had the coronavirus, COVID symptoms, and or been negatively affected by this pandemic, whether it's because of the restrictions or because of the illness or because of losing a loved one, it blesses us all when we choose blessing as a mode of operating. I mentioned earlier when I was reading the Course in Miracles lesson that I had a patient just left the office who was talking about judgment. And amazing synchronicity with that Course in Miracles lesson. And he was talking about how he knows that he makes strong negative judgments about a particular person that he sees regularly at meetings he attends. And he was asking me, because the last time we'd had a session, he was questioning it, and I was talking about the difference between judgment and perception, or discernment, judgment and discernment. And with discernment, I can see the differences between one thing and another, and I don't judge one is right and the other wrong. I just notice the differences. I'm awake, I'm aware, I'm alive in the moment, and I'm allowing everything to be what it is. And because I'm allowing it, I'm awake and aware to it. If there is something in the current situation that needs attention, I'm able to give it. If there's something that my presence, my skills, my history, my training would benefit from having me, step in and take an action, I'll be able to discern that and move from direct observation into action effortlessly. However, if I judge, that person is wrong, that's bad, that shouldn't be happening, I create a tension, I create a negativity, and I'm adding a negative energy to the situation that's unfolding in front of me. If we haven't been taught this, if we haven't had the chance to slow down and observe this, then we don't have options. But as soon as we get introduced to this as a way of observing life flow and energy, now we've got options. Now, instead of simply reflexively responding with judgment, I can slow down, take a breath, and discern what's going on, what's called for in the moment, what are my resources for responding. And when I do, I usually will respond in a way that serves more to be a blessing to myself and others than it will happen when I judge, when I have a negative response. There are so many different ways to talk about it. When I judge, when I have anger for somebody, when I judge somebody else as wrong, essentially it's like I want to throw a hot coal at somebody, so I pick it up with my bare hands and I throw a hot coal at them. Well, in order to do that, I have to burn my own hand first. Another way to talk about it is when I hold anger or vengeance for somebody, it's like me drinking poison and hoping somebody else will get sick. The negative energy that we engage in literally initiates dis-ease in our energy system. We've talked about it many times. It's in the Way of Mastery where it says, if you could see what happens in your body when you judge, how the very cells in your body cease to function properly, if you could see that, you would never judge again. Well, that's just like what Bruce Lipton, a cellular biologist looking through an electron microscope at human cells, came to understand. there are only two modes of being for that cell. One is health and growth, and the other is shutdown and defense. And when a cell goes into shutdown and defense mode, it refuses to take in nutrition, it doesn't rebuild worn-out parts, and it doesn't eliminate waste. So if a cell stays in that shutdown and defense mode too long, it literally dies. It dies by starvation and by drowning in its own waste. Well, the cellular biologist takes it to another level and says they have identified that there are receptor sites on each cell, on the membrane of each cell. And those receptor sites actually tune into the mind energy of the person. And so the cell responds to my mind energy if I choose a negative interpretation of life or a fearful interpretation of life events. The cells in my body go into shutdown and defense mode, even if there's nothing in the physical environment that they need to shut down and protect from or defend against. So when I go into judgment, I literally initiate a process that, unless it's brief, temporary, fleeting, and I flow out of it into something else that's more like health and growth, it will initiate disease and eventually death to the cell. This is why so many, I just heard another medical doctor explain once again how the American Medical Association itself says 90+% of all chronic illness is stress-related. It's because of this very thing. Our stress response, our fight or flight or freeze response, was intended to be a very brief, temporary response to an immediate physical danger. That's how the system evolved, and that's what it's supposed to be. Well, when there is no immediate physical danger, and we create the stress response in our minds, then we can maintain it over longer and longer periods of time, which initiates decay and disease and eventually death in our tissue. That's not a very wise thing to do. So when we wake up and realize that that's what we're doing, the choice is obvious. Relax. All right? Let it go, stop it, relax, take a breath, choose again. Choose for calm, choose love, choose peace, whatever phrase you want to use. That's what we're up against. If we can't bring ourselves to do that, we can't heal, we can't relax, refresh, restore. I haven't mentioned it in a while, but there's a video you can watch on YouTube. It's Stress, Portrait of a Killer. It's a documentary about this very thing. And it's fascinating that, here it is probably at least, I would imagine that particular documentary is over 10 years old, but they just keep learning more and more good, important things about the value of relaxation, about the devastating effects of long-term stress. And when we understand that we are the ones who are choosing and then maintaining our stress response, if we can understand how simple it is to, with practice, not necessarily easy, but simple, to move from judgment into discernment, and how when I discern something no matter how intense the situation is, it's less stressful than if I judge it. I've spent, quite a few years, probably 7 or 8 different jobs I had earlier in my career, where I worked at a place that had very disturbed, wounded, needy people, and I was one of the large, healthy, vigorous employees who was trained in various ways to restrain somebody, keeping everybody safe, whether it was a juvenile hall or a psychiatric hospital or an alternative therapeutic school or a jailing facility for nonviolent adult male offenders. And in every one of those where I was trained, the training was about how to stay calm. And every time I stayed calm in various real-life, intense situations, things worked out beautifully. And in the few times that I was in those situations where people, the employees that were supposed to be helping keep everybody safe, when they would get agitated, anxious, intensely emotional, that's when people would get hurt. So it is the best option for everyone's health and safety to stay calm, even in highly intense situations that demand a quick, effective response. There is no need to escalate to fight or flight mode, to get the adrenaline pumping, to stay in that high vigilance. I remember a number of years ago now looking at the Harbinger Institute, and you can find them if you search for it. And the Harbinger Institute was using the very same kinds of things that Dr. Michael Rice teaches and Guy Finley teaches and the Optimal Being program now teaches through Journey's Dream, etc., that love and respect and collaboration and cooperation are highly preferable to this testosterone-driven competition, adrenaline pumping. And it was somewhere in the southern U.S., and maybe it was Texas, but they had a SWAT team that had this reputation for creating havoc. And they would be called out for these high-intensity drug raids and all kinds of different intense situations. And the Harbinger Institute people were asked to help them because while they had this high rate of resolution of difficulty, they were creating more trauma and drama and community disfavor than it was good for the police department to put up with. So they brought in the Harbinger people. And as you might imagine, they've got these male and female, high-intensity, ultra-trained SWAT team professionals that are trained to just kick butt, knock down doors, blast things open, sniper people from across, the street from a building top, and just wham, bam, get it done. And all of a sudden they're sitting in a room with people that talk in the way Dr. Michael Rice talks, the way we talk about here on Mind Shifters, and talk about collaboration and cooperation and love and discernment rather than judgment. And you might imagine they were highly resistant. And the Harbinger people took their cameras in there and they monitored the training, and you can watch the dramatic shift as these professionals learned this is a practical set of tools. This isn't just Pollyannish, happy, joy thinking. If you can stay calm as Rudyard Kipling would say in the poem, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can stay calm in an intense situation, it'll go better. You'll be safer. The people that you care about will have better results. And sure enough, as they went through this training and they applied these tools and techniques, that SWAT team ended up getting better results and better community relations. And they were safer. The actual SWAT team members didn't have as many injuries, and the community didn't have as many injuries and doors broken down, etc. So I love, and I quote it fairly often, what Guy Finley says about this. He says, there is nothing more practical than true spirituality. And to define spirituality in that statement, I would say the ability to actively discern in the moment what's truly going on, what's actuality in the moment, free of judgment, free of distortion, free of intense emotional response. That's the most practical thing. And if you can get into a situation where you can see and feel and hear the best things happening most clearly and directly, when you're not distorted, your perception isn't going to be distorted by anger, by fear, by sadness, by hurt. You will see what's going on more clearly, and you'll act in a way that's more highly beneficial to you and everyone else involved. And I've lived it. As I said, I had 7 or 8 or 9 different jobs where they were 24-hour staffings, and I was a part of the cycle. It was in the 7 to 3 shift, 3 to 11 shift, 11 to 7 shift, and I was responsible to support people who were going through traumas in life and mental health crises and jailing facilities and juvenile halls. And the more calm I stayed, the better things went. And I think I've already mentioned it in my talk so far this morning. The only time that I remember people getting injured were when staff members got emotionally reactive in response to either the patients or the inmates' upset. But when the staff members could stick to the training and stay calm, and even if somebody was coming at them swinging a fist, respond peacefully, quickly, but respond peacefully, everything went better. So there's a deep practicality to what we're offering in all of these tools. And the practical application of these tools has made my life better by leaps and bounds over the last 17, pushing 18 years now. So hopefully you had another perspective yesterday if you were listening to the Richard Moss interview, where he's got the very same knowledge and wisdom, a slightly different way to talk about it, to help people conceptualize being in the now moment and being able to get more and more clear and discerning when my thoughts are about the past, or my thoughts are about the future, or my thoughts are about somebody else, or my thoughts are about me, and the thoughts distract me from that critical present moment awareness, being in the now moment, being open, being able to flow with the events of life, being able to respond without tension and resistance and judgment. And when that happens, my life starts to go better and better and better and better. So we've got about, however long we want to talk, because the second hour will be an audio replay, because as I mentioned, Michael and Jeannie are trying to attend to Jeannie, who has rather severe COVID symptoms, and any thoughts and prayers you would like to send their way are greatly gratefully accepted. And so we've got time to talk. Comments, questions, answers, 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1. We can have a conversation. Yesterday I did an interview with yet another medical doctor who had the conventional medical training and then just felt called to find out how to be more practically useful to herself and her patients. And so she, after getting the medical degree and becoming a surgeon for ophthalmology and all of that intense training and doing eye surgeries for people, etc., then she decided to go back and get trained in what they're now calling functional medicine. More and more doctors are finding that the conventional medical training they're being given is woefully lacking. It's great as a system, but it isn't so useful, practically speaking, to help people build better, healthier lives. So that's another interview that depending upon its final edited version, I may or may not share with the Mindshifters radio audience, but it will be available at journeysdream.org/podcast if you're interested. And for me, it's kind of a positive, uplifting thing to realize how many people are, and these are, fairly brilliant medical professionals, are waking up and saying, you know what, the training I got is not adequate to help me help myself and my family and my patients. Fortunately, great minds have been working with that dilemma for a lot of years, and they have developed things like the functional medicine training and the integrative medicine approach, and some people call it holistic, some people call it systems-based. So there are things that we can do, that medical doctors can learn, like Dr. Jody Skillicorn, who, as soon as she graduated finished her residency for psychiatry, soon after that happened, somebody gave her the book by Robert Whitaker on anatomy of an epidemic, and she was shocked to learn of all the research that's not hidden anywhere, it's just not widely promoted, but the research that demonstrates that all these medications that she was trained to give people for psychiatric problems, they end up causing more problems than they solve. And she was shocked to discover what's available, what's been known, that she wasn't introduced to at all in her medical training. And then she, much to her credit, as far as I'm concerned, she put herself back through other training for either integrative and or functional medicine training so she could learn how to help treat things like depression and anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder or symptoms without loading people up with medications. And then she wrote the book, Treating Depression Without Medication, by Dr. Jody Skillicorn. And I was fortunate enough to get her to agree to, I believe it was 3 separate interviews. So if you go to journeysdream.org/podcast and search for Jody or Skillicorn or Treating Depression Without Medication, you can get access to at least 2, if not, I believe it's 3 different interviews we did to talk about specific things that she helps people with, other than just, here are your symptoms, all right, take this pill. So to me, it's uplifting, it's optimistic, it's positive that, there are some gaps and holes and problems with our conventional medical model, and yet there are all kinds of people out there looking for good alternatives. And so be optimistic if you want. You can be negative if you want. But our request in this work, our call, our offering is watch what you do inside your mind-body energy system every time you choose the negative. Every time you go negative, watch what happens. So, 563-999-3581. Today's a Tuesday, so I should mention we have a Mind Shifter support group that's going to happen tonight. If you or somebody wants to join, would like to join us, the information is at mindshiftersacademy.org website. The groups on Tuesdays and Thursdays when they run from 6:30 to 9 p.m. And we'd be happy to have you join us and or happy to have you pass that information along to somebody that you think would benefit. I had somebody who was dealing with the difficulty understanding the difference between judgment and discernment, and believing from their training that judgment was necessary. And we just, we invite people who are in that mode to just observe what physical sensations you experience when you judge something negatively. That's the easier way to go about it. The fact of the matter is, whether you judge something negatively or positively, you're going to create a stuckness and a tension. This is what Michael Singer talks about when he says, look, our lives are just this flow of creative energy. And who we are, our essence, is the ability to be aware of that flow of creative energy. And so, as Shakespeare would say, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And we are supposed to be able to watch the flow of life coming into and through us moment by moment, and just appreciate it as we would a symphony or a play or a ballet, as this process of life unfolding. And sometimes it's quite intense, and sometimes it's quite subtle, and it's all okay. It's all just the flow of life. As we say, oh, I really like this and I want more of this, we try to grab onto the flow. It's like trying to grab onto the water in a stream. And as we experience something we don't like and we say, oh, I don't want this, and we try to push it away, it's the same thing. It's like trying to push away the water in a stream. And that's the essence of that is judgment. If I am saying this is good, I create a blockage in the flow of life stream. If I say this is bad, I create a blockage in the flow of life stream. If I try to hold on to the flow of life, an event, a moment, an emotion that I'm experiencing because of the unfolding of life in the moment, I create this blockage. Now, in the work that Michael Singer was talking about, he calls it a samskara. This is a disruption in the force in the energy field. And it's those samskaras that we create when we judge something as bad or good, either way. It's those samskaras that we create that are responsible for the seemingly endless series of negative thoughts that we have. Right? I mean, we're all aware that we have a lot of negative thoughts in our minds. And Michael Singer, in his work, helps us track down what's the cause of this seemingly endless series of negative thoughts that I have. He says quite clearly, quite directly, that cause of that negative thought process in my mind is my trying to cling on to certain events or push away certain events in the flow of life. And if I would be free of that tense, seemingly endless flow of negative thoughts, I need to be willing to step into the allowance and surrender that's talked about in the Way of Mastery as the keys to the kingdom. I need to be able to just accept that life is this flow and it's all okay, that whatever happens is going to work out in ways I could never imagine, probably better than anything I had planned for life to be. And when I step into that space and I just watch how life unfolds the way I would watch a ballet or a symphony, I'm not judging it as good, bad, right, or wrong the way I would a football game where I've got a favorite team and I want them to win and I want the other team to lose. When I just embrace life and its flow of energy, I have a very different experience than I do when I judge it as right or wrong, good or bad, up or down. So there's our discussion about the value and the importance of learning to move from judgment into discernment. And I had somebody in the office yesterday who's just very well practiced at this point in her life at moving into rage, at moving into negative judgment, at judging conservative political people, at judging those who would, oddly enough, judge somebody negatively because of their sexual orientation or their gender preference or their political alignment. And so she's literally creating internal physical pain. She's creating anxiety. She's creating anger. She's creating disruptions in her sleep through the process of judging. What's she judging? She's judging other human beings who are out there in the flow of life, just doing the best they can in each moment with whatever resources they have, just as she is. But rather than allowing and accepting that, rather than choosing to view everyone that she interacts with as another being of brilliance and light who's either temporarily forgotten or has yet to discover their brilliance, or as somebody whose actions are best interpreted as a call for help and healing whenever there's something less than loving, then what she does to herself is so harmful that she's ending up going to doctors, trying medications, an endless series of techniques and you name it, dietary changes, meditations, etc., when the source of the problem, the primary source of the pain and suffering that she's experiencing, is her practiced habit of judging others negatively. I found myself just saying in amazement earlier today, it's amazing how powerful this is and how it is not taught in our schools. So if you can choose to just observe, what does it feel like physically, mentally, and emotionally when you judge, good or bad, the tension, the restriction, the physical sensation that comes when you judge, good or bad. If you can let that be your guide and then choose again, as Diedrich Wolzak would ask us to do in his 6-step forgiveness process, as the Course in Miracles asks us to do over and over again. When you experience something that's less than loving, when you wake up and recognize that it's painful, that it's sad, that it's scary, if you could give yourself permission to choose again, you will have you'll have all the proof you need. You'll have the life experience. You won't need anybody's teachings to guide you. You'll choose again, and you'll choose love. You'll choose life. You'll choose flexibility. You'll choose the flow of life, which is healing. And if you want any assistance specifically, go to whyagain.org, whyagain.org. Click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner. Download Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. Print off the worksheet process itself. Start applying it in your life. And then give us a call. Let us know how it's working for you, or let us know if you want some assistance in becoming more proficient in the application of those tools. I had somebody in the office yesterday, his second session, and it was a very it was an unusual situation. And in the very second session, I ended up giving her a copy of 3 Early Memories of Conflict. And I don't understand exactly, what it was, but I had this urge to just jump to that. And it's needed because she's got the belief, the rigidly held belief, that it's other people's thoughts, words, and deeds that are creating her emotions. And when I started talking about how it's our thoughts about those situations, our interpretations of them, that is creating the hurt that we experience, is creating the constriction and contraction we experience, she got incredulous. And she said, but wait a minute, what about this and what about that? And I said, well, take a look at the 3 Early Memories of Conflict exercise and wake up to how most of us are reliving events, patterns, decisions, judgments that we downloaded in our first few years of life, and we're replaying them automatically moment after moment, year after year. So we're not living a 30 or a 40 or a 50-year lifetime. We're living 5 or 6 years over and over and over again. We are automatically producing the judgments and the tensions and the constrictions that are responsible for our life upsets, and we're doing it without knowing it. We're doing it by how we're choosing to interpret and then respond to the life that is unfolding around us. And the tools are here: 3 early memories of conflicts, the reality management worksheet, the mind shifter targeted journaling tool, the codependence to interdependence list of all the good advice I have for everybody else in my life, and how really it's probably good advice for them and it's perfect advice for me. And if you tune into that and you start applying these tools, we'd love to hear from you, because we're pretty sure that if you step into the application of these tools, it's going to improve your quality of life the way it has for those of us who've been around this work for a while. So, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we've got 7 or 8 minutes left. If you don't have anything to comment on or question or ask about, we will move into the second portion of our today's show, which would be a replay of the Healing Through Relationships Part 2 talk. So, let us hear from you if you have a comment or a question. Otherwise, we'll start about 5 minutes early. We'll start the Healing Through Relationships Part 2 presentation from Michael. And once again, we'll ask for your loving thoughts, blessings, prayers, whatever you'd like to send to Michael and Jeannie for Jeannie's quick recovery from a rather severe case of COVID that she's struggling with. So I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I will start our second segment of the show. And I'll look forward to talking with you again tomorrow. Blessings.